All right, so thank you for joining us here. For all of those of you who've been with us all weekend, we appreciate it. We are now down to the finals. We have the number 1 and 2 teams. It is James Baker, Andrew Maine, and Mitchell Sachs on the left. They're the 1 seed in the tournament, facing off against Spencer Garnier, Clay Spicklemire, and Chris Andersen. Starting with Modern, Andrew Maine as the 1 seed. Their team gets to go first here. Starts off with Verdant Catacombs. Clay Spicklemire is going to be a bauble. Checking here.
And no 1-mana creature from Maine. Big check we'll see on turn 2 is able to present a Devoted Druid.
So cycles Street Wraith after checking the top card and then cracks a fetch land. So it looks like he saw something he liked on top of the deck.
Yep. This is the standard sequencing you'll see with Mishra's Bauble plus Street Wraith and fetch land. Allows you to filter your draws real nice.
So it looks like we actually run a 6-card hand from Andrew Maine. That explains some of the lack of start there. Inquisition of Kozilek from Clay Spicklemire is going to take a Viscera Seer out of his hand and leave Andrew with just lands and a copy of Collected Company.
And it's going to take a little bit of time to actually be able to cast that spell unless Maine can draw a mana creature off the top of his deck. And not a lot going on in this hand. Collected Company is very powerful, and if Clay's draw is particularly slow, Maine will be able to leverage it, but this hand is not exciting. And this is Modern, not Legacy. He can't brainstorm his way out of this problem.
Right. I know we watched enough Legacy this week, and you see that, and you think, man, he just fetches and brainstorm. It'll be fine.
Yeah, this hand's great.
He's going to need a big hit off Collected Company. Remember, the Death Shadow deck brings pressure very quickly. Fatal Push, a draw for Clay.
Well, might be the best possible off the top. Looks like a Devoted Druid.
Yeah, Devoted. So Druid, it will be played by Andrew Maine. Now, Clay picked up that Fatal Push off the bauble. Finds another bauble here. He has land 2 and a Tarmogoyf. Now, he probably will have to take a turn off to remove the Druid because this represents a company earlier.
And he knows that Maine's hand is just Collected Company and a bunch of lands. But if Maine peels Vizier, he can potentially Collected Company into some very problematic things. Say Collected Company hits Duskwatch Recruiter. You know, the chance that that happens, that's enough reason to just go for a removal spell right now. Looks like he also has Abrupt Decay as an option. That would be the most mana-efficient use of this turn. The Counters Company deck, rather, doesn't really present non-creature permanents, so going for the Abrupt Decay makes a good amount of sense.
Yeah, Colgan's Command, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Abrupt Decay, you're mentioning a lot of removal in Spicklemire's hand. Though what's unclear is if he has any sort of pressure, a way to follow up on it.
Oh, well, here's another way to use 2 mana in 1 turn.
It's going to be a Fatal Push the play there.
And Thoughtseize the company.
So that's going to leave Andrew with some Windswept Heaths, a trio of them.
He has 3 of a kind, which is a pretty strong poker hand.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, Andrew actually does have some reasonable top decks. Both Eternal Witness and Collected Company be very strong here. Plays both. 4 copies of each. But right now, he's just drawing to them.
Now the question is if Clay can start to apply pressure.
Yeah, he plays Tarmogoyf. That'll help. That and a fetch land. Clay is down to 8 right now, thanks to Thoughtseizes, fetch lands, shock lands, Street Wraiths.
And Tarmogoyf doesn't pay him off for losing that much life.
Right.
It's still quite large.
Yeah, a 5/6 even, thanks to Artifact being added to the usual 4. Instant sorcery, creature, land, then plus that bauble. Maine looks like he picked up another fetch land, so still drawing off the top. His deck does that reasonably well, but Clay will not give him very many turns.
In particular, if Clay is able to draw another Tarmogoyf, a Death Shadow, Traverse for either one of those, this game will be over in very short order. It looks like Clay does have another Thoughtseize in his hand. You know, that's going to be really hard to leverage, given that he knows that at least 2 of the cards in Maine's hand are lands. Yeah, that will be difficult to convert, but then he has 2 other cards in his hand against things that he knows that are just lands, so that is good.
Birds of Paradise to pick up for Andrew. He'll cast that.
And I believe that the other card he's drawn since Clay last saw his hand was Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, it's another fetch land. It's a different fetch land.
And the birds is a glorified land. It's
Yeah, Andrew is purposely playing out the Windswept Heaths first so as to disguise the fact that he just drew another land.
Yeah. Playing Verdant Catacomb here would just let Clay know that you're up to nothing.
Looks like we have a judge call. So what I believe has happened here, and we'll get a confirmation on this, while shuffling through his deck, you saw there was a Kozilek's Return in Clay's deck. That card, unfortunately for Clay, is not in his main deck. Now, he did self-call on it. So the judge is going to go, this one's going to be brought to the judge's attention.
Yeah.
So
unfortunate circumstance. Certainly don't want this to happen in a finals of a tournament, but these things do come up.
This can happen. We'll let you know when the judge makes a ruling on it, just what that ruling is. In the meantime, this is a game which Clay looks like he's pretty ahead in. So pending an outcome of the ruling, he's got about, enters maybe 2 turns to draw a company or something similar.
Yeah, depending what Clay has a follow-up. The Tarmogoyf's already a 5/6. That's of itself a 4-turn clock.
Yeah, and that's assuming he adds nothing else, which it doesn't take too much for them to be able to do that. A Traverse the Ulfenvault at this point has Delirium. You could always draw the Death Shadow.
Maine's fetching a lot.
Right.
Something like a Kolaghan's Command, a Tarfire, can make that lethal in 3 turns.
There is a Kolaghan's Command in his hand also. So a lot to like there. So we will keep you updated on the judge call when we know exactly what it is, as well as our other matches. We have our Legacy and Standard matches both taking place. Now, and this to me, though, is still the strength of the Death Shadow deck. He had, some great removals, a bunch of early Thoughtseize effects, right? So he Thoughtseize the Company. He managed to Inquisition of Kozilek away the Viscera Seer, kill Devoted Druid, and then suddenly presents like a 3-turn clock just a turn later.
Yeah, this isn't the starting that is much different from just a mid-range Jund deck. It is just Tarmogoyf for pressure. Those decks already play this much discard, but it's still this part of the strength of the deck.
All right, so the head judge here has made a ruling on the matter. Because it was a self-call by the player and the card was in his deck as opposed to in his hand, there is a downgrade path available. He has been issued a warning, and the play is going to continue.
Yep, that's good news.
All right, bring you back into the match. Yeah, and that's actually something fairly recent. Sometimes the deck mismatch errors there. When I was first playing on in competitive REL events, that was always a game loss. Now, in the last year or so, there have been downgrade paths available to that. So, yeah. So because it was in his deck, they let him. It's a warning. He called on himself. They do fix the deck, by the way. There's no Kozilek's Return in his deck anymore.
Yeah, that would be an awkward fix if he got stuck with that.
It was like, it's wrong, but we're not going to change it.
I mean, it's good in the matchup, but that's just a really weird fix.
All right, Death Shadow, cast by Clay Spicklemire then.
Yeah, the Death Shadow was a very good draw. It makes it so Maine is drawing even more slim from this point. Shouldn't be difficult for Clay to use these 2 creatures to come across the finish line in this game.
Yeah. So we go back over to Andrew Maine here, still looking for a top deck. After those kill spells and discard spells, he had been left with a pile of Windswept Heaths.
And drew a Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, well.
And a Birds of Paradise. And a basic forest.
That's not going to do it. He can chump block with his Birds of Paradise for a turn. Play that 3rd Windswept Heath. He'll pass.
We go back to Clay. There's a number of combination of cards that can make this lethal on this turn. For example, Clay does still have that extra Thoughtseize in hand, I believe. That can just make him lose 2 life, grow his Death Shadow. If he's able to cast a removal spell on top of that, that's lethal this turn.
And that's what he'll do. Here's the Thoughtseize. He'll go down to 5. See Andrew's hand. You're absolutely right. So now the Death Shadow is an 8/8. The Tarmogoyf is 5. That's 13. Kolaghan's Command kills the bird. Here's a swing for 13. Clay Spicklemire is going to take the first game of the match here. It's in Modern. And 4-color Death Shadow showing its strength there.
And the sideboard, there's not a ton of stuff that's terribly exciting out of Maine. As we look over here, he has 2 Fatal Push, 2 Path to Exile, 2 Abrupt Decay, 2 Gasali Pride Mage, 2 Eidolon Rhetoric, 2 Tireless Tracker, a Linvala Keeper of Silence, a Kataki Ward's Wage, and a Scavenging Ooze. Largely, what this sideboard allows him to do is transition towards his own kind of mid-range Jundi deck. He has all these removal spells.
Yeah, push, path, decay.
So that can stop him from dying quickly, so you cover that. Kind of the thing about this is you have to draw a high volume of spells that matter against the Shadow deck, because the discard spells really help him manage that, but this stuff will increase the matchup to some extent for him. Makes it so that he doesn't just die to 1 Death Shadow without much in the way of discard spells. If we go over to Clay's side, he has those 3 Nihil Spellbomb, 2 Fulminator Mage, 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Ancient Grudge, a Snapcaster Mage, a Maelstrom Pulse, a Ghost Quarter, a Fatal Push, Liliana Last Hope, and Kozilek's Return. Liliana Last Hope is very powerful in this kind of matchup. There's a lot of 1-toughness creatures in Andrew's deck, especially with Vizier of Remedies. That's just another one that the Liliana can just kill. Kozilek's Return is a very effective instant speed sweeper. The extra Fatal Push, that one's very powerful as well. Maelstrom Pulse a little slow, not in love with Maelstrom Pulse here, but it's fine. The Snapcaster Mage to just be a redundant removal spell, that one's very good. And Collective Brutality has some very nice spots in this match. In particular, Collective Brutality kills Devoted Druid, that's really nice. And you can escalate it to look for Court of Calling or Collected Company. If you get 2 things with this card, it's phenomenal.
Right. Now, are cards like the Kolaghan's Command, so those all stay in the matchup as well?
It's a little bit slow. You're better able to leverage it on the play. Given that his creatures are mostly going to be in his deck or like on the battlefield, not a lot of stuff enters the graveyard, and frequently the removal spells for the company deck is Path to Exile. So it's hard to really get 2 value modes with Command. It's not great in this matchup.
All right, another match in Legacy. Spencer Garnier's Grixis Delver deck takes game 1 over James Baker. So 2 wins for the side on the right here. Garnier and Spicklemire with the wins. Chris Andersen, of course, still playing game 1. I think that's a good sign for their team.
It means it's unlikely that he was hit by a turn 4 Ulamog.
Yeah. So all right, so far so good.
At least that going for him.
All right, well, those of you joining us, we are here in the finals of our Louisville Open. It's our 2nd team open in Season 1. As we make our way toward the Season 1 Invitational, though, we have a couple more events coming up. Next weekend, we'll be in Baltimore for a Modern Open, and this is a pretty exciting time for Modern Open, looking at Andrew Maine's deck making the finals here. Some new innovations with Amonkhet. It's going to be your chance to try out these decks in a competitive format.
I'll be raiding my closet for Devoted Druids this weekend.
I have this box, which is like everything I think might be playable in Modern, and if you look through, it's gonna be embarrassing, right? You're gonna be like, wow, you think that might be playable?
I have a similar box. This one didn't make my cut.
All right, so I saw this deck a couple days ago. I went through the box like, I wonder if I got Devoted Druids, and I went through it and there were 7. I was like, yes, all right, we did it. So we'll then have an open in June 10 through 11th. That's our other Modern Open before we end the season with an Invitational. It's going to be June 30th through July 2nd, a split of Modern and Standard in Roanoke, Virginia.
Really excited for that Invitational. Be the first in-house one. Going to be a sweet event.
All right, well, we spoke a little soon here. There may not have been a turn for Ulamog, but the Teamer Aetherworks deck still did get there. Mitchell Sachs scores a point for his team over in Standard, up a game on Chris Andersen.
Turn 7 Ulamog is still pretty strong.
Turn 10 Ulamog. Actually, one thing to note in the matchup, Summary Dismissal, the clean counterspell to Ulamog on 10 mana, that's only in the sideboard for Chris Andersen.
Also, when your answer is a 4-mana spell, you're playing a deck, you have to hit that many land drops. It's often difficult to leverage that.
Well, yeah, I mean, without that card in the main deck, though, I mean, a 10-mana Ulamog actually will just kill you. He can't remove it. He can't counter it. Or he can counter. He can counter it. He just loses some lands.
When you draw the Dismissal early, you won't necessarily be able to use it to counter the Marvel, which is kind of unfortunate. You need to have the card.
Right. So, yeah, I guess you can counter Ulamog. He's not Emrakul.
Yeah.
However, you still lose some lands. Yeah, I guess you can get through that maybe a couple times. There are 4 Ulamogs in Mitchell Sachs's deck.
Yeah. The first one you might be able to get through. The second one is harder. The third one, that one should get you. So
Clay Spicklemire on 4-color Death Shadow, the 16-year-old here from Indianapolis, Indiana. He's got 1 open top 8 to his name. That's just coming recently. New player here on the tour here. He's taking, still in high school though, taking math courses at the local college. Just a short drive here from Indianapolis to Louisville.
apparently Cubs clothing. This is good luck charm. He's wearing that Cubs shirt in this match. So that's probably true.
You know, and making it now to the finals here of an Open at age 16, impressive here. I would not be surprised to see more of him on the SCG Tour.
Yeah, we've had him on camera a couple times this weekend. He's played very well. And this list, this isn't a stock list. It's within a small number of cards, but it's a really good build.
Well, what's interesting is it's the build that takes away the free wins, the Tamer Battle Rage. In a lot of ways, this is the tougher version of the deck to pilot.
Yes.
So Andrew Maine is going to be on the play here for game number 2, and this time he starts out on Birds of Paradise. He was on a mulligan to 6 last game. We'll see how many of his cards he gets to keep. If you haven't played against Death Shadow, they tend to kill your things and take your cards very quickly.
It's kind of a matchup where you keep loose hands if you know that they're Death Shadow.
Yeah, you don't want to maul, and they're gonna take your cards anyway. So
if you're mulliganing to a specific spell that can be hit by discard, like any of them,
just mulligan to a stack of Obstinate Baloths, and then you teach them a lesson.
I did see some Loxodon Smiters in the top 8 of the Classic.
Ooh. So Clay is going to go ahead and use Bobble to check the top of his deck, then casts Inquisition of Kozilek. So we'll take a look at Andrew's hand. 2 copy of Vizier of Remedies, a Kitchen Finks, and a Collected Company. So this is a resilient hand to Thoughtseize.
My immediate read is that the Kitchen Finks is a pretty easy pick here. If Clay does not have an answer to a second Vizier, though, he might go that way. It looks like he does go for the Kitchen Finks here.
So 2 Viziers and a Collected Company. Means the company is at least a turn off. If Clay has a Thoughtseize in hand, he'll be able to get that before it happens. However, Andrew Maine's draw for the turn is a Devoted Druid.
Hope you saved a kill spell to deal with this guy.
Yeah, so this is the combo. Devoted Druid plus Vizier of Remedies creates infinite green mana. Devoted Druid can untap by putting a -1/-1 counter on himself, but with Vizier of Remedies in play, he doesn't really have to pay that cost. He just untaps.
Yep.
And then makes more green.
Clay at least knows that there's multiple Viziers in Maine's hand, but that knowledge doesn't impact the contents of Clay's hand. He needs to have a removal spell.
Simply right. Fatal Push the Druid, Thoughtseize the Collected Company, keep going. Great.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like when I play against Shadow. I was like, yeah, kill your thing, take your thing, it's fine.
Why would they not have it?
All right, Thoughtseize the Company. All right, there we go. Land, Fatal Push. And then the next turn it'll be like, Death Shadow, Traverse for a second, Death Shadow, go. And you're like, oh, and then I'm dead on the next turn. What a sweet deck.
I don't know why you play that Ironworks garbage. Look how good this is.
It doesn't even matter. Every deck I play is bad against Thoughtseize.
Yeah, so play this deck.
I don't know. I could just like...
I like a challenge.
No. It's like it's gotta. The deck's gotta bring me to the tournament. Okay, it's gotta. It's gotta say, hey, you need to play this. It's gonna be fun. I'm just like, yeah, I know it's really good. It's really good. Played the Team GP. Got to watch the player next to me just win round after round with this deck. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm still not playing it. It's costing me wins.
And
no, he doesn't have the push. Okay, so here's a Vizier of Remedies from Andrew Maine. He does have infinite green mana.
But that's all he has. So he's infinite green mana and nowhere to spend it.
Yeah. I was going to say, if he hadn't drawn the land, maybe he had drawn a Duskwatch Recruiter. Then he would have won.
That would have been better.
It's not just Karkline Ironworks combo. I'm sure there's another garbage combo deck out there that is bad against Death Shadow that I can lose a tournament with.
Conley Woods has a new sweet As Foretold brew.
I'm in.
That you can read about on StarCityGames.com. The deck is called Draw 7. Do you know why it's called Draw 7?
Well,
because it plays Reforge the Soul.
Oh, wow, am I in? I bet we're not even paying mana for it.
Well, why would you pay mana for it when you can do it for free?
Yeah. Clay on Unstep's going to go ahead and get an Overgrown Tomb into play tapped. Preserving some life points here. Normally, as opposed to just the fetch, shock, do nothing, untap. It looks like he's taking a controlling route here. So we'll go back to his Clay's third turn. He's got Tarmogoyf, looks like 2 Tarmogoyfs and Abrupt Decay and Traverse in hand. He will shack down to 13 to make red mana, though.
Instant sorcery artifact as card types in graveyard.
All right, Abrupt Decay for Devoted Druid. That will take Andrew off the infinite mana combination. And now here's Traverse the Open Vault. You see Artifact, Instant Creature, Artifact, Sorcery, Instant Land. So this has Delirium, and Clay will get a copy of Death Shadow.
Still at 13, but it's usually not too hard to lose a small number of life.
He can't cast it yet. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Andrew Maine actually attacks on this turn. This is when you talk about that chip shots against Death Shadow being dangerous.
Yep. The problem that Maine faces is he has a 2/1 on the battlefield with functionally no text box.
Okay.
And the second card in his hand is a redundant copy of 2/1 with functionally no text box. It's not even an Eager Cadet.
Thoughtseize is mean. Thoughtseize all your things, kill your other things. That's, yeah. Decks that are trying to put, when there's so many cards like Thoughtseize and Abrupt Decay, and decks that are trying to put multiple cards together to gain advantage really struggle.
Glory Seeker is the one I meant. Eager Cadet's a 1/1. This is better than Eager Cadet.
I think Glory Seeker at 2/2 though.
Yes, that's why this card's worse.
Okay.
It dies to Liliana the Last Hope, for example.
So Maine draws a forest, plays it, and plays a second Vizier. So the window is open for Clay to, I was going to say to draw Liliana.
It's
and
kinda
then he
like-
does it. Oh my goodness.
It's kind of like the universe is scripted.
I'll say this board has a lot of X1s. Clay plays one Liliana the Last Hope. So that is a strong draw from Clay. He will play the Planeswalker, and she will go to work on Andrew's board. Each turn has another creature can kill. Start by taking care of that Vizier, untapped Vizier of Remedies.
And if he waits long enough, he gets to make zombies.
Andrew draws a land. So if you're in James Baker's seat, if pressure is on, cannot afford to lose another game. Liliana goes down to 2. Clay, though, more lands, more traverses, more creatures. He will plus taking care of the Vizier.
It's pretty egregious that Liliana ticks up to just kill all of the creatures in Andrew's deck. It's so hard to pressure this card once it's on the battlefield. Just gains loyalty and just goes up a card every single turn.
Guess you should just don't play creatures.
Yeah, creatures are terrible. Unless they're Tarmogoyf, Death Shadow, Snapcaster
Right, you're right.
Mage.
She doesn't. Well, she kills Snapcaster Mage, but that's
Yeah,
that's
fine.
like that's a creature I can appreciate that card. Here's Death Shadow, Tarmogoyf from Clay. Andrew's empty-handed. This will be a quick clock. Draws another land. Now there might be some sequence, depending on how much instant speed there is in Clay's hand, where if Andrew draws a Collected Company, he can end step it, untap, play something, and win. He is still a combo deck. So if Clay doesn't have an instant speed kill spell, there's a shot. Andrew, it is a land. He's saying if there's any reason to hang on to it. Says no, plays it tapped.
Now, the reason to hang on would be if you get hit with a Kolaghan's Command in your draw step.
Yeah, and actually in Clay's hand, it's Traverse the Open Vault, Tarmogoyf, and land. So there is no instant speed interaction here. Now, because Andrew didn't hit the company that turn, he's gonna take a big chunk of damage right now.
Clay does have that sideboard Snapcaster Mage, which he can traverse for, at which point in time he would have an instant speed removal spell.
Yeah, now his fetch land has to be able to find the blue mana source. Looks like it does, so it's Bloodstained Mire, and he can find Watery Grave.
Traverse for Snapcaster Mage is a lot of value.
Yeah, well, actually, and I really like it because of the Snapcaster Mage with Abrupt Decay up probably stops any out Andrew might have.
Right.
Playing very far ahead. He's one thing I like, and this is something especially when you see this in such a new player, is a lot of players don't close the door as tightly as they could. You know, they get ahead. And Clay may have even found just a better line here. He's traversing for Street Wraith. We'll check, see if this is... So he's at 6 at the moment because that shock off the Watery Grave. If he cycles the Street Wraith, he goes to 4. The Shadow's a 9.
He has a couple draws to be lethal this turn this way.
No, wait. Yeah, I guess he can't... Yeah, I was going to say he can cycle Street Wraith.
He can't use a Liliana to kill
To
the
kill
bird
and get back
get
Street
back
Wraith.
Street Wraith.
Yeah, he's trying to win this turn. So cycle Street Wraith, Clay goes to 4. This means he has 14 damage in play.
Thoughtseize.
Hey,
that'll do it.
And he sees it immediately. Bird of Paradise gone. Thoughtsees himself down to 2. Here's a swing for 16. Clay Spicklemire cleans it up, and he will win 2-0 against Andrew Maine. So the modern match is done. Garnier, Spicklemire, and Andersen now just need one more win. We look up at the top. We see Baker and Garnier picking up their cards. We can get a report after the match is still going.
There's shuffling happened back there. Leads me to believe there's still magic happening.
And there is. James Baker evens things up with Sultai control. So the match finals are not decided yet. But Modern is over. Once again, we see Death Shadow. If you're trying to assemble some A plus B combo, you got to watch out for this deck. It is good against just about every combo deck.
And we have definitively proven that Death Shadow is still the best deck in Modern.
Of the teams we had here on day 2, I was surprised to see only 4 teams picking up this deck. There was a team Grand Prix in San Antonio a month ago, and I know going into it, the talk among all the teams was, well, we're going to have a Death Shadow player, right? And a lot of teams are just, they didn't play it.
I would not have flown to Texas if I found a squad that did not allow Death Shadow.
Well, to be fair, though, the winning team didn't have one.
That's true.
The rest of the top 4
They,
did.
in fact, had regular Jund beating Tron in the finals, which is wild.
Yeah. All right, so we have our next match. We will go over to our Legacy match. And this one is going to be between... This is going to be between... It's going to be James Baker facing off against Spencer Garnier. We saw Spencer with Grixis Delver. He won his last match. It's going to be against Sultai Control, though. And he lost... Right now, the Control player has taken the first sideboard game.
Yep, and it's generally going to be the case that Control is going to gain more edge against Delver than Delver is against Control. A lot of the stuff that makes Delver good in these matchups, it's just main deck cards. Wasteland, Daze, you can use the Spell Pierce, what have you, to counter the stuff that the Control deck is up to. Now,
James Baker stuck on basically played the similar deck to what we saw win our last team open. Leovold, Emissary of Trust, Abrupt Decay. A lot of teams like Ben Friedman moved away from this, thinking that the green cards, Abrupt Decay gets less good because Counterbalance is gone. Leovold gets less good in the same way. How do those cards play against a Delver deck, though? Are they, do you want the green cards, or do you wish you just had 2 colors?
An uncounterable kill spell for Deathrite Shaman's pretty significant. It's usually the case that you don't fight counter roars over removal spell in the first place, but the fact that it costs 2 mana and can't be dazed is somewhat significant.
Right.
You can always get it in there. The Abrupt Decay, it largely is for some decks that do still exist on the fringes. For example, when you play against Mono Red Sneak Attack, you want to be able to kill Chalice of the Void.
Right.
There's still permanents that aren't counterbalanced that you want to be able to destroy. So the card's still quite good. It has lost a little bit of significance, but it's still powerful.
Now, also of note, there's a basic lands in James Baker's deck. He does have 1 forest, 1 island. That's something we haven't seen in a lot of these 3-color mirrors.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to squeeze them in, but he is playing 21 lands.
Right. All right. So we look over in our standard match, and this Legacy is going to decide everything. We see Mitchell Sachs with Teamer Dynavolt Tower, a 2-0 winner now we can report over Chris Andersen. So that's going to be a win for the team of Baker and Maine for his teammates. So at 1 matchup each, it's all going to come down to this Game 3 in Legacy. It's going to be James Baker's Sultai Control deck versus Spencer Garnier's Grixis deck.
All comes down to Brainstorm.
Yeah, now we are in sideboarded games. So James Baker, he will have access to things like more copies of he has, some lower to the ground stuff.
An extra Abrupt Decay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this isn't a Submerge matchup. I'm a really big fan of Submerge, but when you're playing only has 1 tropical island, it's hard to leverage.
Marsh Casualties in his sideboard is one of that. Actually looks really nice against this deck.
Yeah, Young Pyromancer is one of the reasons to play this card.
Now, it also actually works against True Name Nemesis, right?
Yep, it'll clean that one up for sure. And if you get to 5 mana, it kills Deathrite Shamans.
I don't know if you ever get to 5 mana against... well, if you are,
it's tough, and maybe you'll get dazed. But this card does have Kicker.
Yeah. On the other side, for Spencer Garnier, we see from his sideboard, he gets to go a little bit bigger as well. Cards like Vendilion Click, Baleful Strix. Is that the right way to go here? Or if you go big, are you fighting the losing fight?
There are Gurmag Anglers on the other side of the table. Looks like it's just 1. The fact that you can't Baleful Strix in front of True Name Nemesis makes it not very exciting. Not super about it in this kind of matchup.
All right, we're going to go down to the table between these 2 players as they are getting ready for game number 3. You see both play teams with the sideboards out. And it's not, the one-on-one has now turned into a 3-on-3. This is going to be for the trophies.
And we going to have our Grixis Delver player. It's going to be on the play here, which is where Delver wants to be, having lost that first sideboarded game. Way easier to leverage Wasteland to keep your opponent out of the game when you're on the play. It's true that these are both Wasteland decks. That's something. But the Delver deck, it has way more cheap spells. To be fair, the Sultai deck, there's 4 Noble Hierarchs and 4 Deathrite Shaman. So Spencer will want to waste James off of mana and kill any mana creatures. It's going to be important to do both of these things.
Right, and in the James Baker's deck, this is going back to the kind of deck we saw out of Sam Pardee, out of Reduke. It is 4 Noble Hierarch, 4 Deathrite Shaman. It has a lot of mana acceleration.
Yep. A lot of removal spells, too. Fatal Pushes, Abrupt Decays.
So with so many mana creatures, that mana denial strategy you sometimes see out of Delver decks is going to be tough to execute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it forces you to really have a way to interact with the lands and the creatures. And players are picking up their opening 7s here. Yeah, it looks like Spencer, he gestured as if he was keeping, but there's some chatter going on in the team.
Yeah. That's the hardest one, right? When you're playing that pressure match with 2 guys over your shoulder.
It's hard for me to focus if I have to have a conversation when I play, Sometimes it's best to just let your teammate do their thing.
So James Baker on the draw is going to take a mulligan with Sultai. It looks like Spencer then. It means he's kept his 7 on the Grixis side of things.
Well, it's a good sign. It's a lot easier to keep your opponent out of resources when they have fewer options available in the first place. Yeah, but if this is not a hand that Spencer has that can interact with mana creatures, James' deck is fully capable of leading on a mana creature, maintaining, making a couple land drops, getting a Jace down pretty quick, or a True Name Nemesis as early as turn 2.
Yeah, 4 True Names, 2 Leovolds, and 2 Jaces. There are a lot of cards actually in Baker's deck that would recover from a card disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. This deck's way heavier on mana, though. 21 lands, 8 1-mana creatures.
Yeah, it's about half his cards are just for mana.
Mm-hmm. You can end up with a lot of air.
And he will keep on 6. And it's going to be a scry to the bottom. So this is going to be the finals match. And we are underway. Spencer starts off turn 1, Volcanic Island into Delver of Secrets. Look over at James Baker. Draws Dismember for the turn, so he has an answer, but it's an expensive one for the creature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Dismember is largely in the deck because it's an answer to Gourmet Angler, or if you run into it, Tarmogoyf. Doesn't feel good if you have to point Dismember at Delver.
We'll see if he does, though. Also, Thoughtseize was available for James Baker. Jace the Mind Sculptor in the opener as well. So he'll start on Thoughtseize, going down to 17, and we'll take a look at Garnier's hand. And we see Deathrite Shaman, Brainstorm, Cabal Therapy, and 2 fetch lands. It's rare if you get a chance to take Brainstorm with something like Thoughtseize.
Yeah, that's a pretty big win.
Yeah, Spencer says, hey, you should take this Therapy. I don't think that's going to happen, though. So depending on his removal situation, Deathrite Shaman or Brainstorm is going to be the pick here.
Mm-hmm.
With 2 fetch lands in hand and a land in play, it's mighty nice to take Brainstorm. If he doesn't take the Brainstorm, I'm assuming that Spencer's going to shuffle away that Therapy.
It's reasonably likely. We've had Spencer on camera before. Hasn't been the type of player that really Cabal Therapies aggressively.
Right.
He also was gesturing as a joke that James should take the Therapy, suggesting that he does not value it very highly.
Well, there's a blind flip here for Delver of Secrets, and it's going to be using Lightning Bolt. So Spencer draws that for the turn. He did get to keep the Brainstorm, and now he will main phase Brainstorm. Picks up Daze, Scalding Tarn, and a second Lightning Bolt. This, we could see a very aggressive plan here. You add in the fact, James casts a Thoughtseize. James' only kill spell is a Dismember. There are multiple lightning bolts in Spencer's hand. This all adds up to what could be a really fast clock.
Yes.
Looks like Spencer did keep Cabal Therapy. So he fetches for Underground. See, he kept at least one lightning bolt. We'll see if he actually did take both.
Your opponent doesn't lead on mana creatures. Having 2 lightning bolts not ideal.
Yeah, unless you want to be lava spiking. And yeah, it looks like he shuffled one of them away. Here's going to be Cabal Therapy. We'll see what he names. He just names Brainstorm. Would be great. He's going to name Abrupt Decay, and that's actually going to hit. So good blind therapy there from Garnier. We see second land, Dismember, Jace, and Brainstorm left in James's hand.
Yeah, so this was informed in a couple ways. James both did not kill the Delver on turn 1 and actually Thoughtseized away a creature over the Brainstorm. Brainstorm, the most powerful card in Legacy. That suggests he's going to have some difficulty killing creatures. Certainly if his removal spell is not Fatal Push.
All right. Fetch land the draw here for Baker. He too, though, has Brainstorm plus Fetch land. And I have to decide, is it worth it to dismember this Insectile Aberration? It really hurts.
And if he wants to Brainstorm first, that Dismember is very dazeable.
Yeah, their team's discussing, do you daze or do you dismember here? Or do you rather Brainstorm or dismember? And looks like teammates were suggesting Brainstorm, but James overrules here. He goes for dismember, and he's going to get rewarded for that play.
It would be a disaster to Brainstorm, dismember, and have your Dismember dazed.
It's so much life. Yeah, he'd be...
He'd be at 6. Yeah, you have to crack the fetch, take 3 again.
Ugh. So James removes the Insectile Aberration, is at 10.
Now Spencer needs to produce another threat. He has a little bit of time. He knows James' hand. He knows that there's Jace the Mind Sculptor hanging out there. Takes a little bit more mana to cast that one. A little bit more still to resolve it through a daze.
Sure. But he's going to need to get another threat down. Four cards then in Spencer's hand. Make Scalding Tarn. And it looks like it will be the full delve here for Gurmak Angler. And this is actually, it looks like it's going to work here. There is the 5/5. James Baker in response going to fetch. If he goes for the Brainstorm, he's going to get punished very hard here. And it looks like that's what Baker's going to do. A big daze coming up for Spencer.
Honestly, Brainstorming this daze isn't that great of value. Or dazing this Brainstorm. It's an end-of-turn Brainstorm. He just shuffled. He'd have to redraw at least one of the cards. If he Brainstorms on something he wants to cast and has to redraw a card, dazing the spell that he wants to cast could be more significant.
You know, and you're right. And Spencer, without hesitation, lets the Brainstorm resolve.
I see a lot of players fight over these
this
end-step
is why I
Brainstorms.
don't play these
Yeah,
decks.
the
Okay.
end-step Brainstorm is a pretty weak play. It's a sign of weakness from your opponent.
Yeah, because Brainstorm's such a powerful card, and using it in this window is not a powerful time to be using it.
He also still knows about Jace.
That's true. He does know about the Jace, and it is his only answer to it. If Jace were to resolve and James unsummons the Angler, that could very well end the game.
Right.
So here's Ponder by Baker. He had to redraw one of the 2 cards he put back. And won't have to, he can shuffle here to stop the second redraw, and that is exactly what he'll do.
Yeah, there was some land and a wasteland. This is not a position where wastelanding your opponent matters at all. You're behind on the board.
Yeah, but things are so close now. James is at 9, and James knows about a Lightning Bolt. Now, Spencer has Brainstormed since he saw it, so James might think Lightning Bolt's not there. But if it is, one hit off Angler, Lightning Bolt, and a fetch land, that ends it.
Not to mention that 2 hits off Angler is already just lethal.
So it's going to be Deathrite Shaman from Baker. Potential blocker also could let him play a Jace through the days on the following turn.
I'm pretty into lightning bolting this Shaman.
Spencer's going to swing. Chump block from Baker. I mean, that's pretty free, right? If he doesn't block, then you can bolt the Shaman anyway.
Yeah, that much is true.
Fatal Push drawn by Baker. Well, here's something you can't Fatal Push, and that's the Zombie Fish. Baker down to 7 on fetch lands. It looks like he's going for the Jace. But Garnier is ready. And this is why Garnier saves the days. You're right here. This is the card that could bring James back into it.
Yeah, the days here matters so much more.
Yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor from James Baker. Spencer Garnier casts Daze. And now James is just left, well, with nothing. It's going to be 5 from the Angler and 3 from the Lightning Bolt. That's going to seal it up. And that is going to be the end of the tournament. It's going to be Spencer Garnier, Clay Spicklemire, and Chris Andersen.